Yo, what's up, people? What's up? This is Tireo, and I am back, y'all, with another video and also another very eye-opening and truthful message. And in this message right here, I want to reveal to you all, and I'm going to be talking about people who get the deepest relationships with God. People who get the real blessed relationships with God, are people who get the real deep connections with God. It's all the same stuff, however you want to call it. Again, so in this message, I'm going to be talking about people who get the deepest one-on-one relationships with God, are people who get the deepest connection with God. Okay, I'm going to be talking about that. This is a message right here that preachers will never tell you. You know, pagan Christians will never talk about this. They try to cover it up, you know, and a majority of people, they don't even know this. But there is a secret to this, and I'm going to give you this secret in this message, okay? I am going to reveal to you the people who get the deepest relationships with God, because it's a secret behind that. So many people, you know, they waste nothing but time going through church, going through Christianity, going through a million Bible studies and all of this nonsense. People waste their time on giving themselves titles, calling themselves evangelists, calling themselves prophets, calling themselves ministers and pastors and preachers and bishops and all this stuff. People waste too much time, and people do all of that stuff, y'all, trying to make themselves chosen. You cannot make God have a deep one-on-one relationship with you. You can't do it. You can't slap a title on yourself and make God talk to you. Okay? You can't do that. But you folks still try. People still try. People call themselves Christians. People call themselves Israelites. People call themselves Muslims. People go to church over and over again. They attend a million Bible studies. They do all of this stuff trying to get God to talk to them. But let me tell you a secret in this video and in this message, okay? The people, and here it is, y'all. It's a simple secret, and I'm going to tell it to you and reveal it to you. The people, the very people who get the most deepest in relationships with God, are the people who are not even bothered about God. I'm going to repeat it one more time for you. This is a secret and you need to hear it. The people who get the most deepest relationships with God and the most connections with God are people who are not even bothered about God. Those are the very people who get the deepest relationships with God. It's in the Bible. I'm going to open up your eyes and prove it to you. Let me tell it to you one more time, because you probably think I'm tripping. So let me tell it to you one more time and hear me clearly. The people who get the most deepest connections with God are the very same people who wasn't even bothered about God. That's the people that God went to. Now, you want Bible proof? Here we go. Let me open up your eyes to this stuff. Here we go. Moses. Let's look at Moses. Look at Moses with an open eye, if you will, right quick. Let's look at Moses. Look at Moses' life with an open eye. Moses, if you notice, Moses wasn't always the guy who had a deep relationship with God. Remember, before God called Moses into the kingdom, Moses didn't even know God. Moses was not even bothered about God, and Moses didn't even believe in God. You folk better wake up. I'm telling you the truth. Okay, this is the truth, and people, you can't change the facts about this stuff. Before Moses had God in his life, Moses was a man who didn't even know God. He wasn't even bothered about God. He didn't even care about God. And on top of that, he didn't even believe in God. Remember, Moses was on the verge of becoming the prince of Egypt. Moses, he was not bothered about God. He wasn't bothered about God. And watch this. And guess what? And he was the man that God picked and went to. Remember, Moses never went to God. God went to him. That's a big difference. Moses wasn't even bothered about God. God showed up in Moses' life by the burning bush, giving Moses orders and instructions. Okay? Moses was a man who wasn't even bothered about God, and yet God still went to him and picked him, and Moses and God had a deep relationship for real. That's the truth, man. And see, people don't want to tell y'all the truth on this stuff right here. That's the truth. I'm going to repeat that, okay? Before Moses came into the kingdom, Moses wasn't even bothered about God. He didn't even believe in God. He didn't even care. And yet, he is the very man that God picks. Do you see what I'm saying? Moses and God had a deep relationship, but you got to understand, you got to go back. Hit the rewind button backwards on Moses' life. Moses wasn't bothered about no God before God showed up in his life. God just shows up in his life talking to Moses by the burning bush. Moses was a brother who wasn't even bothered about God. I got some more people on this list. Let's look at, I got another one in the Bible. Let's look at the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul was another one. Here it is. The Apostle Paul was one of the most smartest brothers in the New Testament who followed Jesus. And yet, the Apostle Paul was not even interested in following Jesus. Remember, the Apostle Paul was totally against Jesus. He wasn't even bothered about Jesus. Remember, his old name was Saul. You got to understand that. His old name was Saul, and God changed it to Paul. He wasn't even bothered about God. He wasn't even worrying about having a relationship with God. That dude didn't even care. And as a matter of fact, he was the very same man going around persecuting the people of God. And yet, Jesus knocks him off his horse and picks him. And then they have a deep relationship with God. Do you folks see what I'm saying now? Do you see what I'm saying now? The very people that get the most deepest in connections and relationships with God are the very same people who are not even bothered about God. The Apostle Paul was not bothered about following Jesus. He didn't even care. He was going around killing folk. And yet Jesus comes in his life, changes his whole life around, knocks him off his horse, and brings him into the kingdom. You want more? I'm going to give you more. Here it is. The disciples, the 12 disciples. Look at Peter, Matthew, look at Thomas, look at Luke, look at John. Peter was a fisherman. Peter didn't care about no God. Peter wasn't even bothered about God. Remember, Peter never went to Jesus. Jesus went to him. Peter was not worried about Jesus. Peter didn't even care about following Jesus Christ. Peter's main focus was being a fisherman, and yet Jesus goes to him. Peter was not even bothered, and yet Jesus went to him. Matthew was a tax collector, so Matthew was robbing folk out their money, getting clean over, charging folks extra on their taxes, and yet Jesus goes to him. Do you see what I'm saying, man? Do you get what I'm trying to show you, folks? The people who get the deepest relationships with God are the people who are not even bothered about God. That's the ones God go to. God don't go to church folk. He don't go to preachers. He don't go to evangelists and all this stuff and people who carrying titles. God goes to the very people who are not even bothered about him. That's the ones he go to. That's the ones who get the deep relationships with God, man. Mary Magdalene, I'm going to give you more. Mary Magdalene, here it is. Mary Magdalene out there prostituting in the streets. She was sleeping around with various of people. She had 7 demons in her, and yet Jesus goes to her. Remember, Mary Magdalene didn't go to Jesus. Jesus went to her, and he set her free, and he picked her. Here it is. Jesus' own mama, the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary never asked God, can she give birth and get pregnant with the Son of God? Remember, the Virgin Mary never asked God that. God just picked her and allowed her to get pregnant with Jesus. I'm going to repeat that. The Virgin Mary never went to God asking God, can she get pregnant with Jesus? God just picked her on his own. He went to her. That woman wasn't bothered about getting pregnant. She wasn't even worrying about that. And yet God goes to her and pick her to give birth to Jesus Christ. Do you see what I'm saying, man? Do you people see what I'm saying? The very people, y'all, who God picked to have the deepest connections with him were the very same people who wasn't even bothered about following God, man. Look at Joseph in the Bible, the brother Joseph. Joseph wasn't bothered about following God, and yet he was the chosen one from his family. He wasn't even bothered about that stuff, and yet God picked him. Do you see what I'm saying? Look at Samson. Samson wasn't thinking about following no God, and yet God said he's the chosen one. Look at David. David was a shepherd boy. David was not thinking about following no God, man. David wasn't even worrying about God. He was just a little teenage shepherd boy, and yet God picked him to kill Goliath. Do you folks see what I'm saying? Even Solomon, man. Solomon wasn't worrying about following no God, and yet God picked him. Daniel, Elijah, and the rest of them. This is the truth. This is what preachers don't want to tell all of y'all, because this right here hurts your feelings, man. This will hurt you. Seriously. So you can even hang up your Bible studies and calling yourself a Christian and all of these titles. That don't mean God gonna pick you. That don't mean that God is gonna talk to you. The very people who had the most deepest one-on-one relationships with God in the Bible was people who wasn't even bothered about God. God went to them. They didn't go to God. God picked them. And you folks know it's true because you all know the stories, man. Seriously, this is the truth. Look at a brother like Tupac. Tupac, with all of the craziness that he was doing, he still was chosen. This dude was cussing up a storm, rapping about killing folk, dissing everybody. Pac was wilding out. Tupac was out of control, and yet God was still using him. Do you folks see what I'm saying now? Look at a brother like Malcolm X, man. Malcolm X wasn't even thinking about the truth. Remember, Malcolm X was the same dude that was, remember, for all of you folks who know Malcolm X's life story, you know that Malcolm X was a gangster. Malcolm X was a real gangster. He snorted cocaine. He had sex with multiple white women and black women. Malcolm X was a well-known gangster before he went to jail. You folks know Malcolm X's story. Malcolm X wasn't thinking about no God. Malcolm X wasn't thinking about speaking the truth. That dude did not care about that stuff. He was just focused on being a gangster, and yet God picked Malcolm X to bring a lot of truth in the earth. Folks, the very people who have the most deepest one-on-one relationships with God are the people who wasn't even bothered about God, man. And that's the truth. That's the truth, man. That's the truth. I'll give you folks an example of my own life story right quick. I'm going to use myself on this one. I'm going to use myself. I come from the streets of New Orleans. I didn't always have God. I come straight from the streets of New Orleans, in gangs, in high school, selling guns, smoking weed, all kind of stuff. Had a lot of girlfriends, all kind of stuff. And then here it is. When I turned 18 years old, God come to me. God picked me. He came to me. Remember, I was one of them dudes, I wasn't even bothered about God. I was lost. Think about it. How can I be bothered about God if I'm lost? I'm lost in the world. I come from the street. I ain't thinking about God. I ain't thinking about eternity. I ain't thinking about heaven and hell. And yet, I was the one that God picked. Folks, do you see what I'm saying, man? Do you see what I'm saying? God gotta pick you, man. Okay? All of you folks trying to force God to talk to you, trying to read a million scriptures and have all these Bible studies and go to church every Sunday. That don't mean God gonna talk to you. God ain't into that stuff you doing. Putting titles on yourself, up calling yourself pastors, evangelists, prophets, and all ministers and all this nonsense. Going to Bible seminaries and stuff, man. Following religions, thinking God gonna talk to you, man. No, the very folk, y'all, who God had the most deepest connections with was people who wasn't even bothered about him. I'm one of them. I come from the street. I come straight from the street. I wasn't bothered about God. I didn't even know who Jesus Christ was. And yet, Jesus picked me, rose me up, and I'm 10 times smarter than all these preachers you see today. I got more wisdom than Bible scholars, man. My wisdom is strong. My knowledge is strong, man. I'm 10 times smarter than these preachers, man. These preachers don't know nothing. They don't even have wisdom. I'm smarter than all these pagan Christians, man. I'm telling you folks secrets, man, of the truth. I wasn't even bothered about God, and yet God come to me, raises me up, and I passed up all of the preachers and Christians and all of this stuff and Israelites. So I'm 10 times smarter than all these people, man. That's the truth, man. That's the truth, y'all. I'm giving you folks the truth on what preachers will never tell you. The very people who had the most deepest connections and relationships with God is people who wasn't even bothered about God. They wasn't even interested in following God, and yet God went to them. I'm telling you folks some realistic facts. I just gave you the facts because it's in the Bible. I gave you all the facts. And see, let me tell y'all something about Christianity. Christianity be trying to make it look like, those people was just so into God. They'll try to make y'all think that Moses was just so into God. Moses, Paul, the disciples, and Mary Magdalene, and the rest of them. They try to make y'all think that them people been had God. Them people wasn't even bothered about God. And yet God still went to them and rose them up and brought them into his kingdom. That's what I'm trying to tell you folks, man. This is why you got to get out of Christianity, because they don't tell y'all the truth on how this stuff operate. All they do is lie. God don't care about your titles and evangelist this, prophet this, minister this. You can do all that stuff and stamp all them titles on you and you still can't hear God. That don't mean God just gonna have a deep relationship with you. No, man. No, the people who had the most deepest connections with God was the very same people who wasn't even bothered about God. God went to them. God went to Peter. The Bible says that Jesus walked upon Peter and told Peter to drop his net. Do you see what I'm saying? Peter wasn't worried about no God. Peter wasn't thinking about Jesus. Jesus walked upon Peter and told him, drop your net. I'm going to make you fishers of men. Do you see what I'm saying now, man? That's Bible facts. I know the information, y'all. I know the truth because Jesus talks to me and he showed me all these things, man. You're not going to learn this kind of stuff in no Bible seminary. You're not even going to learn this in church. You're not even going to learn this in having Bible study. You're not going to learn this. God got to show you this kind of stuff himself. Himself, man. That's off top. I got a deep connection with God because I know these secrets and I know the truth, man. And I'm going to repeat it. The very people who had the most deepest and beautiful connections and relationships with God was the very people who wasn't even bothered about God. That's the truth, y'all. God went to them just like he came to me. He came to me, y'all. When I was 18 years old, God showed up in my life. Rose me up. I'm 10 times smarter than all these people walking around here, man. That's the truth. That's the truth, man. I gave y'all Bible facts in 20 minutes. I hit you with the truth in 20 to 19 minutes. That's the truth. We don't need to have Bible studies for this. We don't need to go to Bible seminaries for this. We don't need to join Bible colleges for this. Don't y'all see the stuff that people take themselves through trying to get a relationship with God? They join Bible colleges. They join Bible seminaries. They go to church every pagan Sunday. They attend a dozen Bible studies. They call themselves evangelists, ministers, and prophets and teachers. And yet y'all, these dummies still can't hear God. They still don't have a deep relationship with God. Why? Because the very people who God was going to was the very people who wasn't bothered about God. Those are the facts, and you can't change that. You can't change the rules. You can't change the facts, man. You can't change how God got everything set up. You can try, but you can't change it. You can't. I don't care how many Christians you listen to. You can't change the way it's set up. And you can't change that Bible. You can't change it, man, because it's in your Bible. All of them loyal followers of God who had the deepest relationships and connections was the very same people who wasn't even bothered about God. And you can't change that. You can't change that, and I can't change that. So you better accept it. You better just accept it. And guess what? You don't have to accept it. You want to know why you don't have to accept it? Because it's your free will and you're still going to get judged for it anyway. So you don't have to accept it. You can just do what pagan Christians do. Try to make yourself chosen. You can try it, but it ain't going to work with God because you can't change the rules and you can't change the facts. So with all that being said, y'all, this Tireo, I had to hit y'all with that truth, man. Truth hurts, but that's just the way it is, folks. That's just the way it is, man. So with all that being said, y'all, this Tireo, and I'm out. Peace.